Miniature Market has thousands of board games at discounted prices. Click the direct link below for Sky Team or any other game. Hello my friends, it's the Game Boy Geek here. Today we're going to be pilot and co-pilot on a plane, trying to get everything just right. The wings, the levels, the brakes, the altitude, clearing the radio towers, trying to land today. This is, we're taking a look at Sky Team. This is from AScorpion Masque. It's a limited communication cooperative game. Let me show you how it works. I'll see you on the other side. Sky Team is a two-player cooperative limited communication game where one of you will be the pilot, the other one will be the co-pilot. You're going to have your own shields. You're going to be rolling dice, placing them behind your shield, and then using them, but there is some limited communication. Now, what you're trying to do is land the plane. We'll talk about how you do that in just a moment, but what you're going to be doing is going through phases. So at the beginning of each round, the game lasts multiple rounds, you're going to be able to talk strategy before you roll your dice. You'll be talking about different parts of the airplane that you're going to need to work on. Then you'll both roll your dice, and then going back and forth, you're going to be placing dice one at a time in some of these different aspects. Generally speaking, the blue pilot's going to be placing them in blue spots, the orange in orange spots, and then the spots that both of them can go. So the pilot might place a 3 here. This has to do with how the plane's wings are, and this is important because now you're not forced to place in any specific spot, remember, but there are only the blue player can play here. Now the co-pilot doesn't have to play here right now. You can play in any of the legal spots you want at any when it's your turn. But let's say they place this. Now remember, once you've rolled the dice, you can't talk. Now what this does is, since this is a 4 and this is a 3, the difference is 1, so it's going to go 1 click this way. And this is important because if it ever gets to the X all the way on either side, you've immediately lost. And at the end of the game, in the last round, in the final round, you're going to need it to be perfect in order to actually have a good landing. Now let's say blue places here. Let's say orange places here. Again, they wouldn't need to do this back to back in the same spots, but this has to do with speed. We add these up, it's going to be 7, and so now 7 is in between this and this. These are essentially these are the flaps, and these right here correspond with the sort of the landing gear. And so these are aerodynamic markers. It's changing your aerodynamics as your landing gear starts to come down and as your flaps begin to come down. So we had us up at 7. It's in between both aerodynamics. At the end of the round, we're going to move a speed of 1. If it was less, we'd go 0, and if it was more than the orange, we'd go a speed of 2. That's important because that speed is going to show us how many thousand feet we're going to go down. Like if we a speed of 1, we'd go down like this at the end of the round. If it was speed 2, we'd go down 2,000 feet. This is important because we need to get to the landing of the plane. And we need to line that up to when we actually have gotten the tower, gotten to the tower. But we're also going to need to clear these planes out, because if ever this, at the end of the round, this needs to come down, there's a plane here. If we need to go down again, we would collide with it and we would lose. So you need to get rid of these planes. And so if the pilot places the 3 in the radio section, they go 1, 2, 3. They've radioed to take this plane out. Maybe now the co-pilot goes here. They actually have 2 spots to talk to the radio tower. Level 4, so 1, 2, 3, 4. This is the 4th spot. One of those go away, and that's how you're sort of clearing the path for future getting close to the airport tower. Now you can always spend a die here to place a coffee, and then anytime any player can take one of these, put it back here, and they can manipulate a die +1 or -1 when you place it. Instead, maybe they place here where it needs a 3 or a 4. This is going to switch on, that's that part of the landing gear, and it's going to move the aerodynamics here, so it's going to make it a little bit smaller to be able to, it's going to be, you have to push harder to move up in the speed to get down because it's creating more drag, if you will. Now, the flaps have to be done in order. This one, then this one, then this one, then this one. So this player would need to place a 1 or a 2 here, and what that allows them to do is switch this on, and now this is also going to move this aerodynamic marker up. So now, if the difference between these, right now it's 7, it still is here, but let's say later on it ends up looking something like this and we roll the 7, well now we're not moving anything because we're outside of this band, we're lower than it. Inside we move 1, outside we move 2, so you're going to be using different dice there depending on how close you are to the airport. Now yeah, depending on your speed, whether you're going to move 1 or 2 or 0, you'd move this down that many times. You'd also move this down 1, and now you start another round. You'd get the dice back, you'd talk about things, and then you'd roll and you'd do your moves. Now let's say we've gotten to the last round and we've got both of these here, then what we do is we go to a final round. Now you are trying to time these pretty close together because if you've cleared everything from the tower, but you're not here yet, you're circling around the airport and you got to play another round. Conversely, if you're still not if the tower isn't still up, but you're here, then you've crash landed and lost. So you really need to get these as synced as possible. And the big thing with the final round is at the end of the round, you must have this thing perfect, your wings. And of course you need to have all of your flaps down with the green switches. You need to have all your landing gear down. And the speed in the last round doesn't affect how fast the plane moves. You look at your brakes. Over the course of the game, the blue player, the pilot, could have turned on different parts of the brakes, moving the brake marker ahead. Over in previous rounds we've done this. But now we have a speed of 4. We're here. It has to be less than where the brakes are. So moving this up gives you a little bit more room to brake when you hit the runway. And if you have all those things together, then you'll win. Now that is just the basic game. There's a ton of modules of components and little mini games like kerosene and managing the fuel. There are a lot of different things that you can add to the game once you know what you're doing. You can start with the easier ones scenarios at different airports, then you go to medium, and then you go to the difficult ones and the extremely difficult ones. And there's a lot of extra information packed into the box here for advanced play. Before I get to the moment you've been waiting for, I want to let you know that Game Toppers 4.0 Kickstarter recently launched. Well, they'll have 10 new thematic game mats, including Vincent Dutray's Lost Worlds Jungle Mat, and new accessories and storage solutions, along with custom thematic art on rails of the Game Toppers, and they're giving away the new Young Sherlock Game Topper package, which is great as a movable coffee table, children's gaming table, and for puzzles. Scan the QR code or go to GameToppersLLC.com to enter and win now. Yeah, I typically like co-op games. I typically also like, most of the time, limited communication co-op games. And this works good because you cannot see what the other players are doing. You can talk at certain spots, like before the round. You can generally say, hey, we just a reminder, we need to kind of get this thing back in line. Don't forget that we do want to get this up at some point, you know, but then once you start, you don't talk. And I like that because it's not one of those ones where you can like game the system and come up with your own language. And you know, I don't like those ones as much, but this, in here, the limited communication works really well. I like that you have asymmetric sides where one player, the pilot and the co-pilot, they have different things they can do. You know, there's certain places only they can place dice. Some of them have to go in certain orders, some of them don't. But I like that when you could play the same scenario and you play it on the other side, and generally it's the same thing, but there are different ways that you need to think when you're on the other side, because again, different places to place, different orders you may or may not have to place things in, and it kind of just gives you a slightly different feel. I like that where you don't place your dice matters just as much as where you do place, because again, once you start, you can't talk. So you might purposely be not playing in an important place because of the die rolls that you've got, trying to let the other player know that like, I really need you to play there first because I want to see what I'm dealing with, things like that. And so there's a lot of like unsaid communication in this that you get better with as time, and I really like that aspect of it. I like the little coffee, gives you sort of the needed flexibility where you can just kind of put a die there, and later on allows you to sort of, you know, adjust a die. Without that, this game would be like almost impossible. You need that flexibility, and thematically it's kind of cool, you're getting coffee. I like managing the radio tower. Everything here is thematic. You get the radio tower getting the planes out of the way. You get the wings, you don't want to be too all over the place. You gotta get the flaps down, you gotta get the speed right, you gotta get the brakes. Everything sort of is thematic here, and I like that aspect of it. After you've played the sort of beginner tutorial, which is like the first game you'll play, I like that there's many modules of increased difficulty. And there's all sorts of little sort of mini games that come with new boards and pieces and things to manage. It just makes things a lot harder, makes you think things a little differently, and they range in difficulty, and I like that. And I like that in these types of games, typically you're gonna get more and more chemistry with your partner, and you're gonna get to know each other and know that you're gonna almost be able to communicate without talking better. And I think that's a really cool thing. Now on the negative side of that thing, this is definitely best played with the same partner over and over, working your way through all the scenarios, but that's not always possible with people. When you start over and you want to address this game you play this game with a new player, you got to start over. You're basically starting your journey and your communication all over, brand new, and you kind of know the game well and they don't. And you're kind of starting over and you're trying to figure this out, and you're going to be, you know, failing again and then getting better and then talking, you know. But starting over doesn't feel as good as just jumping in and playing with someone that you know this with. And so if you often play with different players, this might not be the best thing for you, but if you got a two-player game that you can play with the same player quite a bit, that's who this is really for, I think. And sometimes luck can play a big factor as a negative thing, where sometimes, you know, sure you can mitigate it with the coffee, but at other times you might just have a terrible roll and you're gonna have to, spend a lot of dice to get the coffee in order to manipulate stuff. And sometimes luck can definitely play a big factor in this, but that's part of the game. Overall, I really enjoyed the game. If you like limited cooperative games for 2 players that go through sort of a scenario-based thing, I think this is one you're gonna want to check out. It's been the Game Boy Geek, breaking down barriers, growing relationships through board games, and helping you find the next one you love. Game Toppers not only transforms your existing table into a high-quality gaming solution, but they now offer full leg kits and dining cover solutions for the full table application. Paired with over 20 styles of thematic game mats in 11 different sizes from notable board game artists like Vincent Dutray, collapsible cup holders, and real cool accessories, experience what thousands of other gamers enjoy by upgrading every game you play with a Game Topper system. Save hundreds of dollars on Game Topper package deals that are in stock now for immediate shipping at GameToppersLLC.com or click the link below.